Hello there. You're listening to The Deal with D and J. I'm your co-host, Jacob Pearl, alongside me, wearing his Luke Combs, what does that say? Automotive Repair, Charlotte, North Carolina. Make sure you call 1-800-302. I can't read the rest of the four numbers. 302-1990. Mr. DJ McCatherine on the other side of the line. Headphones wired in. He's wired in, folks. You know
Wired
it's
in
time.
today.
You know it's time to get serious when he's wired that in.
Yeah, no gambling on the audio today, boys.
No, we needed crisp, needed clean for the people. We love to see it. DJ, not a whole lot of things kind of going on in the college world. We're starting to get close
Yes, sir.
to that
Coming in
time.
quick.
Next weekend, week 0, Florida State, Georgia Tech,
Mhm.
overseas.
Overseas in the good old
Obviously,
Ireland Bowl.
like I said, we will have the ACC preview out next week as well. And then we'll have our full CFP prediction, Heisman, all that will be right before week 1 on that Thursday on the 29th,
Yes, sir.
right? So
Mm-hmm.
just for the dealers out there, we're not doing week 0. I think that's make believe. We're doing week 1 where it matters the most. Why you have a week and call it week 0? Makes no sense.
Should just be week 1 and tell everybody they get 2 bye weeks.
Exactly. DJ, I know something got released the other day that I know you're itching to talk about. It's something you always hate. It's our hatred. It is the AP top 25 officially been released for the preseason. I'm going to read you the top 10, DJ, and then we'll kind of go through and I get our initial reactions of the top 25 as well. You
Okay.
got Georgia in the 1,
Mm-hmm.
Ohio State in the 2, Oregon in the 3. Oregon, Ohio State, and Georgia are the only teams receiving first place votes. Then at number 4, you got Texas. 5 is Alabama. Number 6 is Ole Miss. Number 7 is Notre Dame. Number 8 is the Nittany Lions of Penn State. Number 9 is Michigan. And number 10 is Florida State. TJ, right off the rip of that top 10, give me a team that surprises you right away in that top 10.
I'll say 2 things. The one that surprised me right away was Ole Miss 6. I think that one stood out as far as a team that is not normally that high to begin the season. We mentioned in the SEC podcast that is going to be out. Is it out already?
Yep.
It is out.
It's been out.
The SEC podcast that is out. I had mentioned that a lot of these SEC teams they're gonna battle each other out, right? There's just gonna be the unfortunate domino of playing each other. And Ole Miss looks like it's going to be an even bigger win against them, whoever it is, than even originally thought because they're a preseason number 6 team. The only other team that or the only thing that you said, excuse me, the other thing that you said that surprised me was there were only 3 teams that received number 1 votes, right? And neither of those 3 teams that got first place votes were in the playoffs last year. So the one that surprised me that didn't get any first place votes was Texas, who is returning a good portion of players, still has arguably the best quarterback in the nation this year in Quinn Ewers, and just looks to add on what was last year a really good season. So those were the 2 things that stuck out in the top 10 to me first and foremost.
Yeah, I think for me, I'm agree with your point on Ole Miss. I was shocked to see them at number 6. Granted, I know they finished the season strong, but I didn't believe that everybody was that high on, given they lost a decent amount of players out of the portal to the portal. Judd Kids being the biggest one we talked about in the SEC podcast, which is linked below in the captions. But also, I'm surprised Michigan is as far down as they are for a reigning national champion, being number 9. Like, I don't remember seeing a team who won a national title not be at least in the top 5, right? So
Right.
I'm, especially in the CFP era, I'm surprised the media and the AP thinks 8 other teams are better than Michigan. And a team that I'm surprised they put ahead of Michigan, which is Penn State and Notre Dame. I think Michigan is still better than them because, frankly, like obviously we don't know what the coaching situation is going to look like yet for the season, but they still had great recruits that Jim Harbaugh brought in that are still better than whatever James Franklin and Marcus Freeman are doing. So that's a little bit surprising to me. And obviously, I think the biggest surprise who's outside the top 10, my Missouri Tigers. That's not,
Golly, didn't see that one coming, did we, guys?
no, I thought Ole Miss and Missouri, not saying they're going to be swapped 6 and 11. I don't think Missouri on paper right now is a top 6 team, but certainly a top 10 team, right? I was shocked they put Ole Miss as high as they did and left Missouri at 11 and not put, and especially with like Penn State, who didn't finish the season strong, and neither did, you know, Notre Dame. And obviously, Florida State, while they didn't finish strong, that wasn't necessarily a lack of effort, is because everybody was decimated by injuries, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
And that's unfortunately what it is. I will say, I think the AP Top 25 always gets it wrong every year. But I will say, for a preseason poll, it's starting off pretty solid. I think Clemson being ranked 14th, I think is still bonkers because they were terrible last year. Terrible. And like Dabo didn't do anything in the portal. So
Right.
like you're trusting a development program that isn't quite there. I don't see Clemson being a 14th ranked team at this moment in time. Right. And
Right.
yeah.
So just a few things that I wanted to comment on. I definitely agree with your Penn State and Notre Dame take. I mean, if you're looking at the AP list like I am now, Notre Dame jumped 7 spots from the end of the year AP poll, and Penn State jumped 5. Um, I think there are going to be solid teams this year. Notre Dame being more notably better just because they're returning a lot of young guys. Marcus Freeman, when he took over that program, brought a lot of people in, and they are shifting roles over there. A lot of people undecided or left with Brian Kelly, and Marcus Freeman bringing people in. But I think Notre Dame, I like the way that Marcus Freeman coaches. So I think they're going to be solid. Penn State, on the other hand, like you said, shaky way to end the season. Lost to Ole Miss in, I believe it was the Peach Bowl, correct?
Yep. The one in Atlanta.
Yep. So those are just pieces that don't add up, or Penn State is a piece that doesn't add up to me. The Michigan one, however, does make a little bit more sense to me. You're right in the fact that I don't think that we've seen a dip from a national champion like this in a long time. Maybe 2019 LSU after they won going into 2020. But I think with that trend is Michigan wasn't a dynasty team. LSU wasn't a dynasty team. Outside of those two teams, who have been winners in the last 10 years? Other than those two teams, it's Clemson, Alabama, Georgia. And those teams, even leading up to their national title, they are going to reload, right? Michigan, on the other hand, won the national title. Their head coach left. Now they've got sanctions coming down on them, and they lost, I believe it was 18 of their starters after this national championship, which I don't think that we've seen from a national title team. Maybe again, with the exception of 2019 LSU, maybe 2020 Alabama. So with that, I can see that's why they dipped as far back as they did. I don't know what we're going to expect from Michigan. Yes, they've got some recruits, but I don't even think we're finished with their off-season troubles. And then lastly, yes, your Missouri Tigers. I was shocked to see that they were outside the top 10. I think it is disgraceful, especially with the way they ended the season. with a huge win over Ohio State, regardless of how that team looked coming in. Um, I don't think they should have been put ahead of Ohio State, but again, with the way that they ended, I don't think there's any reason to keep Michigan, Penn State, or really Notre Dame above them. And if you wanted to take one more leap, you could almost put them ahead of Ole Miss. So again, like you said, the AP poll never fails to disappoint when they start the season and even throughout the season. I think they're the most jumbled up garbage journalism on sports that I've ever seen. So I don't know why we credit them or ESPN or college football or the NCAA, follows their ranking, but that's my 2 cents about that.
Yeah, I think another surprise that I've been a quick one is that Washington is not ranked in the top 25 as well.
I
They didn't even
was
make,
seeing that.
they didn't even get close. They only received, I think it says 23 votes. And then people in front of them are Liberty, Iowa State, SMU, Boise State, Virginia Tech, and Louisville all got more votes than Washington to be outside receiving the votes. So I think it's obviously we know about the AP poll and it's not great and they're so skewed and some people are going to do whatever they want with their home bases. But to have a team that was the national runner up. Now,
Mm-hmm.
granted, I get they lost a ton of talent. Jalen Polk, Roma Dunze, Michael Penix, Kalen DeBoer leaving. But they
Mm-hmm.
hired Jed Fish, who took Arizona to finish as the number 11 team in the country last year.
Mm-hmm.
And you have Arizona currently ranked 21st.
I was just about to mention Arizona is still in there, the biggest dropper of any team in the top 25, as they dropped 10 spots from where they finished the season last year. I think the
I think
inconsistency is wild. And then you put USC at 23, a 7-5 USC regular season team at 23. What did they do? What did they do to deserve the jump? What kind of confidence do you have to leap them above some of these other teams?
I am also surprised a team like LSU lost the Heisman winning quarterback and Malik Neighbors plus some defensive talent, and they're ranked 13th. Like, I'm not quite sure if I believe in Brian Kelly that much right away. I do want to. I'm interested to see how much they take from last year to this year, and then obviously you take into account the same thing we talked about in the SEC and the Big Ten preview. A quarterback stays and gets another year of development. What does that look like, right? And I'm the biggest. Obviously, we talked about Missouri. They brought everybody back, and they're
Right.
11th.
And they dropped 3 spots.
That doesn't make any sense to me, especially a team like Notre Dame, who they have Riley Leonard at quarterback, who, he had one great year. I'm not quite sure if I'm sold on Riley Leonard at Notre Dame. And he also is coming off, I think, an ACL injury. Like he had a
Right.
significant knee injury at the end of the year, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's interesting to see the top 25. Obviously, we won't really know who's who until like week 3 or week 4, right?
Right.
When everyone's playing a couple games. But I find it surprising, and I do enjoy going back at the end of the season after the college football playoff and the national title game and seeing those final rankings at the end of the day. So
Yeah, I think my final note is 8 of the top 10 teams, Jacob, come from either the Big Ten or the SEC. The only 2 teams not there are Notre Dame at 7 and Florida State at 10.
now let's transition, DJ, and let's do our third conference that we're previewing, the Big 12. They had notable departures of Oklahoma and Texas, 2
Mhm.
historic long mainstays in the program, and now they bring in the likes of Arizona, Utah, and Arizona State. and they welcome back former Big 12 member, the Colorado Buffaloes, back into the conference. I think this conference is sneakily underrated for the teams that are in it. I think it's going to be competitive. I think it's going to be really fun. And the thing about the conference is that it's still a gauntlet for the respective teams at the top, right? Because it's not going to be easy for some of these teams to play each other, right?
Okay.
So
elaborate.
for me, so the way I see it is that, some of these teams are going to have to go on the road to places that are tough. Actually, nowhere. So I'm just kidding. The bounce house, tough place to play, especially at night, right? Kansas is supposed to be way better than they've been with, Jalen Daniels and Lance Leopold and the way that's going to be, right? Oklahoma State is no joke as well. Kansas State is still legit, right? You have Cincinnati, Baylor, and BYU, where you never know when they could just have the best game of their life and you're in trouble against one of these teams, right? You're still looking at the likes of West Virginia, and that's a tough place to play out there in coal country, right? TCU, we'll see what they're like, I guess, but it's Texas heat, man. It ain't like you're coming from, that Texas heat is going to get to somebody. Maybe it gets to Utah. Maybe it gets to them boys in Colorado, right? Something like that. It's underrated in that sense. It's not like the SEC and the Big Ten where it's all these big powerhouses and then like a group of like really, really bad teams. I look at the Big 12 and it's like, yeah, you're going to have your bad teams, right? But I view it as Utah could go lose to West Virginia and Utah can go lose to Kansas. Utah can go lose to Oklahoma State. Oklahoma State can go lose to Arizona State. You never know with this brand new conference who's going to kind of outrival each other. So I find it interesting in the sense of like, we're still going to get similar Big 12 football. Probably no defense and a ton of points. And guess what? I'm always a fan of a ton of points.
You make a couple of good points there, Jacob, but I think this is just going to be the conference of mediocre. And there might be a team, maybe two, that stand out. And I don't think that they are going to be the original Big 12 team, right? I think that Kansas State and I think that Utah will be at the top of this conference. They will come in and they are going to dominate. I do think it is still the Big 12. They will knock each other out like they always do. Utah, only God knows why, always has a team or two that they lose to throughout the year, right? We saw it in the Pac-12. It is going to be a mediocre Pac-12 from the last couple of years, is what the Big 12 is going to be this year.
Yeah.
Again, with a standout team, I think it's going to be Utah. It could be Kansas State. But nonetheless, those are going to be your 10-2 teams with their signature loss and their whatever reason, their upset loss. And the Big 12 is going to be just mediocre. It's unfortunate, right? We saw it last year with the Pac-12. Washington just happened to survive. Washington went 11-1 last year, if I'm not mistaken. So
who are you talking about? Utah?
Washington,
yeah, they were
did they escape
their only loss was to
I think it was Arizona.
Yes, I think it was Arizona. But I kind of want to touch on Utah for a second here because you mentioned that you think they're going to be the best team. They got to play 10 conference games, DJ. You got to play 10 conference games. That's a long time to be in conference. It's not like the SEC where you're only playing 9, right? You get that extra game at, their 2024 schedule. I mean, they got Southern Utah, dub. Baylor at home, probably a dub. Utah State, I don't know, probably a dub, right? Then you got to go to Oklahoma State, and then you still have some of your Big 12, Pac-12 rivals, but it's still just like you're looking at it, and there's like this game at Colorado could be a little bit of a trap game, right? BYU can give them fits. Potentially, Iowa State or UCF can give them. It's weird with Utah because Cam Rising, I think, is in his like 7th year. I
Yeah,
think
his 6th or 7th year.
something like that. He's old. He needs to leave, but he's there.
Right.
Cam Rising is really freaking good at quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he's the reason why USC didn't make the CFP like 2 years ago. So, like, and Utah is a very, very tough place to play for an opposing team in Salt Lake City. So,
Yeah.
I'm interested to see that. I like that BYU and Utah get their little rivalry back again. Now it actually almost like every year now in the state of Utah, So I think that's going to be exciting, and to touch on your Kansas State point, they have a quarterback who is incredibly mobile. I think his name's Avery Johnson, and incredibly mobile, super talented with his feet. His arm he has a live arm. Accuracy is probably going to be his only issue, given he's, I think, a sophomore. But he's talented, man. This Kansas State team is still talented, right? And unlike you, I don't think it's going to be Kansas State at the top. I think it's Oklahoma State going to be at the top. I think the Cowboys, the Cowpokes of Oklahoma State are going to cause fits for a lot of these new teams going to Oklahoma State. You're not gonna survive them slapping that paddle against the wall. Come on, DJ. I need you to stop disrespecting teams like you do every single week, dog. Give these teams the respect they deserve. Give them the respect. The respect.
I mean, the Cowboys did decent last year. They went 8-4 in the regular season, 9-4 overall last year. But I mean, they lost 33-7 to USA. Southern Alabama. They lost to UCF 45-3. Right? They had closer games. Iowa State, they lost 34-27. That's a close game at Iowa State. Tough place to play. But they lost to end the regular season. They lost to Texas 49-21. But then they show back up in the Texas Bowl, and then they beat Texas A&M 31-23.
The Tax Act.
I don't name them. Mine would be the Luke Combs Bowl. The Texas Luke Combs Bowl. Tell me that would be fire. Luke Combs comes out at halftime. God, they should promote me.
I don't know.
But nonetheless, I mean, what do you see out of Oklahoma State that has them so far ahead? I mean, they gave up a ton of points in every game that they played last year, except for maybe Cincinnati. They're giving up 27 points a game.
Their last like 3 or 4 games, they were giving up like 40 plus. I don't know. I think with Oklahoma State, I think I'm infatuated by the idea that big brother Oklahoma's gone. So now that like the burden's off your shoulders, you can like flex your might, I guess. Maybe it's a fever dream. Maybe I like to be different. I don't know. I do agree. I do think also, I think an underrated team as
they did
well.
beat Oklahoma last year.
They did beat Oklahoma. That's why it's like, know with the Big 12, like Utah, like you said, like Oklahoma State, like you said, lost to Southern Alabama. And then they went and beat freaking number 9 Oklahoma. So like,
okay. Here's my final point to this, at least for my point that Utah and Kansas State will be at the top. If you take a look at their schedule, right? Let's just take a quick look at their schedule. If you were looking at the schedule last year, you would laugh at the Big 12. You would say this is a weak schedule. They play SUU. I don't even know what that is. Let's just take it. Southern Utah Thunderbirds. All right. Then they play Baylor, Utah State, Oklahoma State, Arizona State, TCU. That would be the one I would circle, right? Houston, BYU, Colorado, Iowa State, UCF. Come on. Come on. Maybe the at Oklahoma State is going to be your big question mark, but even then, they play TCU at home in Utah. That's going to be brutal. And then let's just flip it around real quick because Utah avoids Kansas State, right? Let me come back here. Kansas State schedule. Again, let's just take a look at it as if it was last year. UTM, don't even know who they are. UT Martin Skyhawks, whatever that is. Tulane, at Tulane. That could be one that you could highlight. Against Arizona, BYU, Oklahoma State, Colorado, West Virginia, Kansas. They play them at home, though. Houston, Arizona State, Cincinnati, Iowa State. If you're looking at these last year, these are bum schedules. Bum schedules. If any other team in any other conference in the nation had this schedule, they would say they play weak opponents. The only benefit of the doubt that Utah and Kansas State have right now is that they're Power 5 teams. They just don't have.
Yeah.
This is just who they're bound to play. I'm just saying this schedule is weak. And Kansas State and Utah are the powerhouses in the Big 12 right now. That's why they're going to be at the top. Boom.
Boom. Doomer boom. No. I think to your point, obviously, like the Big 12 is not going to have great, like your wins aren't going to be sexy and everyone's going to doubt you, right? Because they think your conference is significantly weaker.
Mm-hmm.
Again, I'm reading an ESPN article and they agree. They think, like the top 3 teams is Kansas State, Oklahoma State, and Utah. So maybe I do know ball, DJ. Maybe I do know ball, but I do kind of want to touch upon, obviously we'll save America's team that we all love to hate last for before we end the preview. But I want to talk a little bit about UCF and what Gus Malzahn's building in Orlando. And I'll tell you what, man, that team's looking good on paper. Now, I think bowl game, I think they might be competitive. We're probably looking at 8-4, potentially 9-3 in the perfect world, right?
Perfect.
But you're bringing in mobile, dynamic quarterback KJ Jefferson, who's built like an ox, doesn't go down easily. He was a quarterback at Arkansas. Transferred in, right? They have so much talent they're bringing in, right?
Mm-hmm.
They got RJ Harvey, who's a great running back to have, right? They got a DB that's a great freshman, Chasen Johnson, coming out of this article that I'm reading here. And obviously Gus, KJ Jefferson, 6'3", 247, right? And Gus Malzahn has claimed he's the closest thing he's seen built-wise since Cam Newton.
Him playing on Arkansas was hard to watch. I don't know if you watched Arkansas at all last year, but they were a tough team to watch. KJ Jefferson was the saving grace to that team. He kind of reminds me of,
and that team was not good either.
No, it was a horrible team.
It was horrible.
They did, however, I'm interested to see how his arm has progressed this year, because that was what seemed like his worst feature was on that team, was just his arm talent just wasn't there. Right? Maybe it was an offensive line issue. Maybe he didn't have time to really show it off.
I don't think it's as much as the arm talent. I think it's the accuracy of the ball. And granted, Arkansas was not good last year. And he was a big piece of why they were able to win like 2 or 3 games. Right. Mm-hmm. And I think it's an interesting dynamic because he's Gus Malzahn's going to use him in a run first heavy offense. RPO, potentially some option plays, QB sneaks, fake QB sneak with a quick little, you know what I'm saying? Like it
Yeah.
feels like KJ Jefferson might be used obviously similar to Cam Newton, which he's been heralded as, but he also could be like Tim Tebow in the sense, not like he's going to be what Tim Tebow was. It's the sense of run, use the arm when it's necessary, use your toughness, use that built, and be aggressive, which I don't think he could have done at Arkansas. And I think
Right.
the secondaries in the Big 12 are a little bit more favorable than the secondaries that you get in the SEC.
That's a fair point. And I'm looking at UCF's schedule right now. It's a little tough, right?
It
It's a
is.
little
It's not
tough.
easy.
But I think they have, if any team in the Big 12, right? If they were going to showcase what they have and make a case for next year being in the top 15, I think this is the schedule that I would want to show a committee looking from the outside in why they deserve to be in. I think if they can pull off a 10-2 record this year, it's going to be difficult. I'm not going to lie. You got to play at Florida, right? But they host Arizona and they host Utah, right? To
And
end the year.
and Colorado.
Colorado's Colorado.
We'll get to
We'll
we'll
get
get
to
to them.
Colorado,
But
but if Colorado pans out how I think they are, that hopefully I hope they win that game, right?
similar
But
colors.
it is. It'll be interesting. But I mean, with a win at Florida, let's just say that they pull that win off. Cincinnati, Iowa State, excuse me. They pull off a win maybe at West Virginia, right? And maybe they upset one of these two teams, either Utah or Arizona, right? I mean, some of these other wins they seem like they can just wipe them off, right? Just check mark them. Could. If Gus Malzahn is building up this program like we have seen, his recruiting, his just the people that he's bringing into the building, this could be a team that I think could make a fair point going 10-2 to make a bid for this 12 spot. It's going to be tough. It's going to be really tough. But I think they could. I think they could make an argument.
Did you see that Gus Malzahn took the whole team to
Volcano Bay.
Bay for team meetings?
Man, pitching Orlando as a spot for people to go has to
I don't know.
be
I don't
one
know.
of the,
It's crazy to me. This is a little side tangent. We're gonna have a little side tangent here. I think it's crazy that like all these big collegiate powerhouses are in the middle of nowhere. Like, why isn't a school like Boston College way better at getting? Obviously, they get the hockey people, right? But like Boston is awesome,
right.
great city, right? Why
Mm-hmm.
isn't Temple better? Well, they were good with Matt Rule, but like Philly is awesome, right? Now, Ann Arbor is like legitimately like Detroit is just like, I think, an hour away, give or take. So,
Right.
like, basically Detroit. So, like, Michigan is attractive because you have a small town feel with school, but you're not too far away from a city, right?
Right.
But like Florida, let's be honest here. You went to school there. I've been to games, visited campus. It's in the
Middle of
middle of
nowhere.
nowhere.
Middle of nowhere.
Tallahassee, while it is the capital, kind of in the middle of nowhere, in the
There's
middle of the
nothing around there.
panhandle. You drive
Yeah.
2 hours out of Jacksonville and you're just farmland, not farmland, forest, basically, Osceola Forest. And then, well, like USF, I think USF with what Alec Golish is doing, well, we'll talk group of five later, but Tampa is an attractive freaking city.
That's when that stadium gets built.
Oh my
Man.
God. The reason why Miami gets all these recruits, because it's freaking Miami, man. Who wouldn't want to go to school in Miami? Who wouldn't want to go to school in Orlando?
They probably got some bar owner down there that rents out the club.
Like, it's the same thing. Like, Texas is in Austin, and Austin is a great city. Everyone's moving to Austin.
Mm-hmm.
TCU is in the heart of Dallas. Well, technically in the heart of Fort Worth, but That's a big city. And they
Right.
get these big recruits, but then it's like a team like UCF, like you said, Orlando, it's
Mm-hmm.
awesome.
Mm-hmm. You're
So
smack in
like
the middle of the state. You want to go to Tampa? Hour
you
and a
get
half
warm
west.
weather,
You want to go
you
to the
get
beach?
you're close to the
Hour
beach.
east.
You got Disneyland, you got Universal, and guess what? When you get that NIL money, you get no state tax on that money. You get no state income tax.
That's probably, I didn't even think of that
Why is that
as
not
a
a selling
selling point.
point?
It should be a selling point. And hopefully they are because I didn't think about it until you just said it.
We don't need to talk about the conference too in depth. I think we touched upon a lot of the big hitters, right? I do like Cincinnati to make a little bit of noise. I like Houston to do maybe a couple upsets. I think TCU is in a tough spot because they have to rebuild that whole program basically after the crazy 2022 team,
Mm-hmm.
right? So I find it interesting. I find it dynamic, really, really curious for me as a fan, right? In the Big 12, just because it's like a lot of these teams aren't looking that crazy. West Virginia is probably going to be 7-5, that middle,
Mm-hmm.
right? So obviously we touched upon the big hitters. We love Arizona as well. The new coach worries us, but the biggest thing is a lot of the Arizona players didn't follow Jed Fish. They
Right.
stayed at Arizona. So
Mm-hmm.
they believe in what they're building in
Mm-hmm.
Arizona, even with this new coach.
Jacob, before you move on, you mentioned Cincinnati, you think making a little bit of noise. I'm over here looking at their schedule and they have something like UCF does, but they look like they have a good path to a couple of big bowl games, or just a good overall record. I mean, Luke Fickle is gone now, right? I believe this is his second year being gone as Wisconsin. He was at Wisconsin his first time last year, right? Last year was his first year. So Cincinnati is an interesting team as we're going to be watching their rebuild right happen right in front of us in a new conference. Second year in this conference, I believe, but nonetheless, I mean, some of the schedule just seems favorable in order to build something again for possibly the following year. If they open up against Towson Tigers, right? Then they pit Miami, Ohio, Houston, Texas Tech, UCF, Arizona State, Colorado, West Virginia, Iowa State, and then they end the year at Kansas State, TCU. I mean, some of these games in the middle here, like I said, the Big 12 is going to be mediocre, right? But it's who is going to get over the hump of mediocrity, right? Can they go against these mid-tier Big 12 teams and pull out wins? Because I think at the end of the day, in order for your ranking to be higher, that's what you need to do. You're going to look at wins over Texas Tech, wins over UCF, wins over West Virginia, and wins over Iowa State and be like, okay, they made a case for their ranking to be higher. They made it over that hump of mediocrity. Cincinnati, historically being a team that's makes a little bit of noise, ends the season, between 20 and 35 in the AP polls, when they do all the way down to 40. But nonetheless, I think Cincinnati has a real chance to make noise, as do a couple teams in the Big 12. Again, get over the hump of mediocrity. But I think Cincinnati has a schedule favorable to do that without having to jump through a lot of hoops. So the only ranked opponent they have to this point is Kansas State.
Yeah,
So
they started off they finished 3-9 last year, so only room for improvement. The Arizona
mhm.
coach that I couldn't think of his name was Brent Brennan, and
Mm.
he is the former head coach of San Jose State, where he took him to 3 bowl bowl appearances and a Mountain West title as well. So,
Okay. He came from where?
San Jose State.
San Jose State. Good
DJ,
one.
let's go ahead and let's talk about, I guess, the biggest talking piece, not deservingly so.
The biggest talking piece is pun intended.
Yes. We're going to talk about the Colorado Buffaloes.
Yep, I already got it pulled up on here.
And Dion, Shador, Silo, Travis Hunter. Let's go ahead and Hayden at running back. Let's go ahead and let's kind of talk about this team and how big of a disappointment their season probably is going to end up being in year 2 of the Dion show. Because
I think
I'll tell you right now, this schedule
compared to the schedules that we just went over, and even the teams that we think to be at the top of the Big 12, this is a schedule
I kid you
to
not,
be worried about.
I wouldn't wish this schedule on my worst enemy. Let's talk about.
I wouldn't say all that.
Given you're a mediocre team.
I mean, for who they have to play in their mediocre conference,
you got to play.
It being as bad as they were last year.
You got to play North Dakota State week 1. What? Then you got to go to Nebraska for week 2, big rivalry game. Then you got to run it back with Colorado State again.
And they're looking to
almost took you down. You got to go to Colorado State's place this go around.
Mm-hmm.
Then you get your Big 12 schedule: Baylor, 2 UCF, Kansas State, 2 Arizona, Cincinnati, 2 Texas Tech, Utah, 2 Kansas, and then you finished the year off with Oklahoma State at home. And I'll tell you right now, this team is not going to a bowl game. I do not believe in the Colorado Buffaloes. I think this team is so unbelievably toxic, and the toxicity that runs through the whole coaching staff, where Dion, unless your name is Travis Hunter or Shedeur Sanders, does not care about you as a player at all. Shedeur thinks he's the greatest thing since sliced bread, and unfortunately his throws couldn't slice bread even if he tried. He not that great, right? Now, I kid you not, the 3 games of absolute Colorado hype last year were probably my favorite 3 weeks of Colorado football history, but I'm fully prepared to hate on them again. This team is not prepared again for a season like this. I think the only reason why they might make a bowl game is because they play in the Big 12. But your first 3 games are so difficult for being obviously we know like Texas is playing Michigan, Alabama's playing tough, like they're playing, but like Nebraska is much better than I think people are going to give them credit for. I think Dylan Raiola, if he's going to be really, really good, right? And North Dakota State, I truly believe is going to upset Colorado in this first game. And then you're looking at a season starting out 0-2. Then you got to go to Colorado State where they almost beat you at home. And then you got to kick off your Big 12 schedule. I mean, I don't see it. I'm not, in my logic is outside of Shedeur and Travis Hunter and Hayden, Shedeur doesn't really go through his reads great. He's kind of jumpy in the pocket, and then he just makes a lot of stupid mistakes that he shouldn't be making as what this would be his 4th year in college football, right? Now, last year you can kind of chalk it up to a learning curve for him for a little bit because he played at Jackson State. But
year before.
Yeah, you know what I mean. But Jackson State, Dion only ever got them to like the best he went. They went almost undefeated one year, but that's not the same level of competition you're going to be facing now. And I
Right.
don't know, and the fact that we're raving as Shedeur Sanders as a top top 3 quarterback in the upcoming NFL draft, I think is ludicrous. I think is bewildering to me. I don't see the hype, the talent, or anything that comes with it. I think listen, I think Dion is a great mentor of men. The way he's doing it in this generation of players isn't working. You can't tell every guy that you personally recruited in practice to them, tell them to earn it, tell them to kick rocks, and then that Colorado's not for them. After, like, to me, as a 19-year-old, and if I'm busting my butt for you, and you're just like you're constantly just belittling me, like I ain't gonna lie to you. I'm gonna be tough and try and get through it, but it's like, dude, I'm playing for you, and you hate and then you look at Shador, and he's arguing with his wide receivers about nothing because Shador
Right.
can't hit them when they're wide open. DJ, take it
Right.
away. I know you've been waiting.
It's going to be a rocky schedule. What I wanted to do with you, Jacob, right now is you were going to pick the record for this year. Ready? You ready? I'm just going to name off. You're going to win, loss. North
Yeah.
Dakota State,
Loss.
Nebraska, at
Loss.
Nebraska,
Loss.
at Colorado State,
I'm gonna give them a win there.
versus Baylor.
I'm gonna give them a win there.
Okay. At UCF,
I'm gonna give them a loss.
versus Kansas State,
Give them a loss.
at Arizona,
Give them a loss.
versus Cincinnati,
Give them a win.
at Texas Tech.
I'm gonna give them. I'm gonna give them a loss there.
Okay. Versus Utah,
Loss.
at Kansas,
I'm gonna give them a loss.
versus Oklahoma State.
Oh my god. Actually, give them the Texas Tech win. I'm gonna give them the Oklahoma loss. Oklahoma State loss.
See, I'll just go ahead and give them a Oklahoma State win. I
So
think
they
at
missed.
Texas.
Oh,
I
they
mean,
still got. That's 8 losses. That's 4 and
8
8 again.
losses. That's 4
It's
and
4 and
8.
8 again. Like, and then let's say they
It's
beat, and let's say like their
if
first
they
2 games.
upset 2 wins, they're
Genuinely, if
still
they win the first 2 games like they're supposed to on paper, that like I want to see what the line is for North Dakota State. Dude, they have Colorado at as a 9-point favorite against North Dakota State. And Nebraska, they are a 6.5-point underdog. Colorado State, let's just
I bet that's
Colorado is an
3.5.
8.5-point favorite.
Eight and
So
a half. Oh
yeah.
my Lord.
Yeah. It's I don't think a bowl game's in the cards for Colorado, if I'm being quite honest with you. I just don't see it. The schedule's daunting. Like you named that stretch of games, DJ, of UCF, Kansas State, Arizona, and then you went Utah, Kansas, Oklahoma State. And I was like, that's 6 losses right there.
Right.
And then let's just say you lose to either Nebraska or North Dakota State, your bowl game is already gone. You can go 5-7, you're not going bowling.
I think the comments that you made, Jacob, about Colorado, Deion Sanders, the locker room. Travis Hunter seems to be the most humble guy in that locker room, and that's kind of saying something as he likes to talk his talk as well. It's hard to get behind a program that just hasn't proven anything yet, but is talking like they've been somewhere before. Um, Deion Sanders has been nowhere before in the college football realm. Travis Hunter hasn't. Any of the Sanders kids have not. No matter what they've done over there at Jackson State, they have not done it and proved it in their conference, in their respective conference. Again, like we said, of schedules that we've taken a look at, this is the most daunting one in the Big 12, point blank. They A bowl game would be a win this year. A bowl game would be a win for this program this year. You said it most. A lot. They are going to get everybody's A game because of what they've put out into the universe for people to hate. Like, I was a Deion Sanders fan. I was a fan of the move to Colorado. I was a fan of Colorado, but now I don't want to see him. Anytime I see that Buffalo, I don't want to hear it. I don't want to listen to Deion Sanders talks. I don't want to listen to Sanders kids talk. I don't want to listen to Travis Hunter. I don't want to listen to any of the highlights, the hype, nothing. I don't want to hear about it. I don't want to hear Travis Hunter being a top pick in next year's draft. None of it is entertaining to me. None of it convinces me to watch. And this will make or break, really, the talking points of Colorado this year. So Deion Sanders better have it put together, because if he does anything less than a bowl game, people are going to start writing him off. So, and I almost respectfully so, for as much as he talks. So,
DJ, I want you to give me. We're gonna wrap up this Big 12 on a nice little bow here.
okay.
Give me the top two teams in the championship game. Give me your winner, and then give me who makes the college football playoff out of the Big 12.
I mean, I think I mentioned it before. I think there could be a couple surprises in here, but nobody that's going to make it up to the top this year. I'm going to go. Are they in divisions, or is this just one versus two? Okay, one versus two, easy for me. Kansas State, Utah at the top. The matchup seems to be a little tricky to me. At first glance, I'm like, that's a good matchup. It'd be a bowl game I would love to see, but it's gonna be a good championship game. But I think I'm gonna take experience and hardship over anything. I think Cam Rising leading this Utah team brings a lot of experience back, brings a lot of heart back, and the boy can he control the locker room. So I'm gonna take Utah over Kansas State in the Big 12 championship game, and they are going to make the college football playoff.
Just one team out of the Big 12 to make the CFP.
Oh, all of them making the playoffs. Again, I'm gonna go Utah and Kansas State. If I had to pick a second team, picking a third team is where it becomes tricky. Thinking any conference could get a third team in there would be a huge stretch.
Yeah, I was gonna say I don't see a third team making it unless they absolutely blow the brakes off.
There was one team in here that I said if they can make it all the way. Was it UCF that I said? Hold on, give me.
You said UCF could go 10-2.
I said I think they can make an argument there. They would have to clear the board, but I'm not convinced the third team's going to make it from the Big 12. So I'll leave it at Kansas State and Utah, and I think that's a pretty good lock. They don't even play each other throughout the year, so I think this could very well be two teams that could meet in the championship, being 11 or 12-0. So just to throw that out there.
I think for me, I think I'm gonna take Utah and Oklahoma State in the Big 12 title game. And I'm gonna take Utah to win. And I think Utah and Kansas State make the CFP. I think Oklahoma State's strength of schedule is not going to be their friend. And that loss to Utah is really going to hurt them if they lose to them twice. So
I mean, they got to play Utah and Kansas State in back-to-back
Yeah.
weeks.
So I think it's going to be Oklahoma State, Utah in the Big 12 title game, but I think Kansas State ultimately makes it as a potential at-large bid stealer out of the Big 12.
So you have Oklahoma State beating Utah.
Yeah, I think it's going to be like that USC situation where like Oklahoma State gets a win against Kansas State, or I don't know how like I just see Oklahoma State and Utah making it to the Big 12 title game, but it's almost like the Baylor versus TCU argument where Baylor like beat TCU in the Big 12 title game, but TCU like still made the CFP even though they lost to a kind of inferior Baylor team.
It's Kansas State, but
Was
they
it
also.
Kansas State?
Mhm.
Oh, either or. But yeah,
Interesting.
those are my picks. Well, DJ, that was our Big 12 preview. Make sure you comment, like, share, and subscribe to the YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, Twitter. We're there. We're everywhere. All right. For all you dealers out there. I have been your co-host, Jacob Burrow. He has been the Luke Combs wearing DJ McCatherine. Catch you next time.